There is a specific kind of silence that follows a firefight. It's not peaceful. It's heavy. It's the sound of the world holding its breath, waiting to see who is still standing. People think Marines are made of iron. They think the uniform makes you bulletproof. But iron melts, and beneath the Kevlar, there is just flesh, bone, and a heart beating for the Marine on your left and the Marine on your right. This isn't a story about winning a war. This is a story about the cost of a single, agonizing breath, and a staff sergeant who paid the ultimate price so her squad could take theirs. Staff Sergeant Sarah Miller was on her third deployment. She wasn't the same girl who had cried in the mud at Paris Island years ago. The Marine Corps had stripped that girl away, replacing her with a quiet, lethal professional. Her squad called her Mama Bear behind her back, and she pretended not to hear it. But she loved them. She knew their hometowns. She knew who had a baby waiting back in Ohio, who had a mother praying in Texas. It was supposed to be a routine patrol, just a presence mission through a shattered, nameless valley where the sun beat down like a hammer, pushing the temperature past 110 degrees. The dust clung to their sweat-soaked uniforms. On Sarah's right shoulder, a small, faded American flag patch was stitched to her combat shirt. It was frayed at the edges, stained with the dirt of a dozen different missions. To the world, it was just fabric. To her squad, it was a promise that no matter how dark it got, America was standing right there with them. The air shattered. It didn't start with a shout. It started with the catastrophic roar of an IED ripping through the lead vehicle. The shock wave threw Sarah to the ground. The air sucked entirely from her lungs. Before the dust could even settle, the valley walls erupted in blinding flashes of enemy fire. Contact front, contact left. Machine gun fire chewed through the concrete walls around them like paper. The air was instantly thick with the smell of cordite, burning rubber, and copper. It was an ambush, a massive, coordinated kill zone, and they were trapped right in the dead center of it. Sarah scrambled to her feet, her ears ringing with a high-pitched whine. "Return fire! Get off the X! Move, move, move!" She screamed, her voice tearing through the chaos. Her rifle was up, firing precise, controlled bursts. But there were too many of them. The enemy had the high ground, and they were pouring fire down into the valley floor like rain. They managed to fall back into a half-destroyed, abandoned compound. But it was a trap. The moment the last Marine crossed the threshold, a barrage of RPGs slammed into the roof. The ceiling collapsed in a shower of concrete and flaming debris. Through the thick, choking black smoke, Sarah did a head count. She heard the panicked screams of the corpsmen. "I need hands! I need hands over here!" Through the smoke, she saw it. Private First Class Martinez, the kid from Texas, barely 19 years old on his first deployment. He was pinned under a massive, burning wooden beam in the courtyard, screaming in absolute agony. Both of his legs were crushed. The courtyard was completely exposed to enemy sniper fire. The moment anyone stepped out there, the concrete around them exploded into dust. And then, the worst thing that could possibly happen, happened. The dry brush and wooden structures around the courtyard caught the sparks. A wall of fire roared to life, violently spreading toward Martinez. "Sergeant!" the corpsman yelled, tears cutting through the soot on his face. "We can't get to him. The fire is moving too fast." Sarah looked at Martinez. She saw the absolute, terrifying realization of death in the kid's eyes. He was reaching out, crying for his mother. Sarah looked at her squad. They were suppressed, laying down, covering fire, taking hits. If they stayed, they would all burn. If they tried to cross the courtyard together, they would be slaughtered. There was only one calculation left to make. The math of war is cruel. Sometimes the only way to save a life is to trade one. Sarah dropped her heavy assault pack. She didn't issue an order. She didn't yell a battle cry. She just looked at her corporal and said, "When I move, you call the medevac. You get these boys home." Before he could stop her, Staff Sergeant Miller stepped out of cover. She didn't run. She sprinted straight into the teeth of the enemy fire, straight into the roaring flames. The enemy saw her immediately. Every gun in the valley turned towards the lone Marine, rushing the courtyard. The air snapped and hissed with bullets. One round caught her in the side, spinning her off balance, shattering her rib cage. She didn't fall. She stumbled, gasped, and kept pushing forward. Another round tore through her left thigh. She collapsed to one knee, the burning debris searing her skin. "Get up," she told herself. "Get up." She dragged herself the last 10 feet, throwing her body over Martinez, shielding him from the falling embers and the relentless hail of bullets. "I got you, kid," she coughed, blood painting her lips. "I got you." ATES 930. The Sacrifice. Voice slow, heartbreakingly gentle, with strength that shouldn't have existed in a broken body. Sarah grabbed the straps of Martinez's tactical vest. She stood up into the fire. She became a human shield. Every step she took backward toward safety, the enemy poured fire into her. She took a third hit, a fourth. Her Kevlar plates shattered, but her grip on Martinez never loosened. On her shoulder, through the smoke and the flames, that faded American flag patch caught the light. It wasn't retreating. It was carrying its wounded home. With one final agonizing heave, she threw Martinez behind the concrete wall into the arms of the corpsman. As she did, the final round found its mark. Sarah fell back. The sound of the battle seemed to fade into a dull hum. She lay there in the dirt, looking up at the sky. It was so incredibly blue above the smoke. The corpsman was screaming her name, his hands covered in her blood, desperately trying to stop the bleeding. But Sarah knew. You always know. She looked at her squad, her boys. They were safe. The roar of the medevac helicopters, the dust-off, was finally echoing over the mountains. She reached up with a trembling, blood-soaked hand and grabbed the corporal's collar. Her voice was barely a whisper, slipping away like sand through fingers. Did the kid make it?" she choked out. "He's alive, Sergeant. Because of you, he's alive." The corporal sobbed, tears dropping onto her armor. A faint, peaceful smile crossed Sarah's face. The pain was gone now. There was only quiet. "Good," she whispered. Her eyes locked onto the sky. Semper fi. And then Staff Sergeant Sarah Miller closed her eyes for the last time. 2 weeks later, beneath a weeping willow tree in a quiet cemetery in Ohio, a rifle volley shattered the silence. Taps played, a haunting, beautiful melody that carries the weight of 1,000 broken hearts. Private First Class Martinez sat in a wheelchair, his legs in casts, saluting through uncontrolled tears. A perfectly folded American flag was handed to a grieving mother. It was crisp. It was clean. But for the Marines of her squad, they would always remember a different flag, a frayed, dirty patch on the shoulder of a woman who walked into the fire so they wouldn't have to. She didn't die for glory. She died for the Marine on her left and the Marine on her right.